Hello, beautiful soul family. Rebecca here, your vibe mentor. Welcome to Monday Mastery, where I offer my intuitive experience with the energies this past week, the energy we are in currently, and bring you some timeless advice on how to move forward. I do spend about 2 minutes going over the solar weather or astrology, kind of get a sense of where we're at, what we've experienced, what might have caused some of the things we've experienced, and then we'll move into that timeless message. So last week was not so bad, considering it was a full moon and a very important political event, which happened to be in my local town. But otherwise, from a solar weather perspective, we had a very quiet week. We didn't have a lot of M class or C class solar flares. And in fact, I would say we had less last week than we have had in the many weeks and months prior. So it was a very quiet week from a solar weather perspective. From a Schumann resonance perspective, we had a lot of activity, which was really interesting. We do know that the Schumann resonance is impacted by local storms and lightning. Some will say that the Schumann resonance does affect humanity, that it is the frequency of the earth. And because we are intimately connected with the earth, of course, we are connected with what she experiences. It's also true that if lightning happens right next to you or even within a few miles, it will impact your nervous system, which is why we talk about solar weather and astrology and things of that nature. Because as you know, I'm all about learning how to drive this beautiful vessel that we are and how to play the game called life. And part of doing that is understanding what impacts us, what makes us feel certain ways, how do we manage it so that we're not at the mercy of our external environment, and we can consciously control and learn how to drive this beautiful vessel that is kind of like a fancy sports car that no one gave us instructions to learn how to drive. So certainly there was some pretty significant, what we would call unmeasurable energy, meaning it was not showing up on the KP index or on the Schumann resonance, or sometimes it was, but there was a lot of intensity that may have been driven by things outside of what we can typically measure on our scientific devices. As far as solar weather, and then we'll just kind of put that portion behind us, there is a small solar storm projected for today. We'll see how big of an impact that is. We don't have any significant coronal mass ejections or solar flares that could be driving that. We do have a lot of active spots or active regions on the sun, but nothing has been officially sent our way just yet. So as far as the energy that we experienced last week, I would say the full moon certainly, it was projected and anticipated to have a bigger influence that it did. And yet I won't say it was mild, because there was a very significant heaviness or even depression or darkness that was brought up for a lot of people. We'll say a lot of shadows, right? A lot of old stuff, difficult things, feelings of despair. There was a lot of even angst or chaos or uneasiness of, if you watch last week's, there was very much a sort of disorganized kind of feeling to the energy. And again, I will preface that with, I'm in close to Milwaukee, Wisconsin, which is where the Democratic convention was. So there was a big influence of energy local to me, and being highly empathic and sensitive, I'm certainly aware of those things. And like I said, it was clear that it was more of a collective energy than a personal. I will clarify for anyone that's new here. If you are in the same vein or in a similar stage in your growth process, if we are part of the same soul family, you're learning some of the same lessons in life, these energy readings will be helpful and relevant to you. And if you are not, they may not resonate. And that doesn't make it right or wrong. It just means that it's not serving you, which means you can leave it for someone else. That doesn't necessarily mean that we need to challenge the timeless message which is coming here, because that is for everyone. I will say with the moon, there came a lot of body aches. There was a feeling of almost having to try to keep things under control. It was like like a cork in a bottle with a lot of pressure behind it. It wanted to burst and couldn't quite push through. And that feeling was sustained Monday, Tuesday into Wednesday, started to dissipate Thursday. And then there was a pretty significant just release of like, oh, everything's better by Friday. There was even swelling in the body, which was really unusual. I've not seen that. And actually I have seen it around the full moon. Obviously, our bodies are a high percentage of water, and the moon does influence the tides. So it's not surprising that we would have inflammation in the body. I have also noticed too that if I've had, a glass of wine or been exposed to toxins, there's more swelling around the moon than as typical. But prior to that, that whole week before, and I realized usually I only go back 1 week, but I'm going back 2 weeks right now. There was a lot of inflammation in the body. And yeah, it was really interesting. It somehow seemed correlated to that pressurized feeling or that wanting to burst forward. Then there's also been a lot of cold and flu symptoms, and of course, a lot of fatigue, which seems to be something we could say almost every week. But again, good news was it softened by Friday. And it was as if there wasn't a moment of release necessarily where it felt like it popped. It was more of a slow dissipation. But as it dissipated, it moved more into these insights that I'm about to share with you, that it very much softened. It was almost like the other side of a coin, that we were looking at the dark side of the moon, around the moon, or for the first part of the week. And then as we switched into the weekend, it was kind of the opposite side, right? The light side, the beautiful side, was able to come back through again. And so it's really interesting, because even though there's a lot of ups and downs, it does seem like the ups are of course, as with everything, right? 2 steps forward, 1 step back is still progress. So with every up, we're going a little bit higher than we did last time, right? And with every low, we're not going quite as low as we had the time before, although sometimes it can seem like we do. Trusting the process that we are moving in the right direction and we are making progress. Things feel like they are getting better and better at a collective level. And I did mention this recently in the last couple of weeks, even though the world systems seem to be crumbling and in chaos, it's a very interesting juxtaposition where while things that are not working are crumbling, we are actually getting better and better. And so even though crumbling is not pretty and it's not fun, and those who want to hang on to it will cause their own suffering through clinging to things that are falling away. But at the same time, that doesn't mean that we as the collective or as the individual have to suffer in this process. And it's very interesting to feel like I can sense that things are getting better and better and better and better. There is a very palpable feeling of expansion, that there's a lightening of the weight. It's not quite as dense. There's more optimism. There's more certainty, not just hope, but certainty in the goodness of the future, right? The good things are happening. Good things are not just coming, but they're here now, right? And that palpable sense of, the miracle is here now. It's happening right in this exact moment, in every moment. And there's more of a sense of creating beautiful things consistently in every moment through frequency and vibration and thought and assumption and expectation and all these beautiful laws that we are aware of. It's just a higher vibration more consistently. It's easier to sustain for longer periods of time, and there's more periods of time in those higher frequencies and vibrations, right? So if you know me, you know that for a long time, being, the closet spiritual in the corporate world, I am a grounded person. I prefer to stay grounded in truth and not to be so lofty and airy fairy and too much in the clouds that, we chose to incarnate here in the world right now. And so we do need to be grounded in this space. So when we talk about frequency and vibration, it can sound so lofty and so airy fairy and ungrounded, and yet it is a real thing. It is a very grounded thing. Everything is a frequency. Everything has a vibration. And so this is important to remember that if I'm feeling fear, if I'm feeling frustration, anxiety, worry, stress, anger, those are lower. frequencies and vibrations. And so when I say that we're holding, sustaining more consistently those higher levels, it is the hope, it is the certainty, it is the conviction and the knowing and the clarity of it's all amazing and it's all working perfectly, and we cannot be held down, whether they want to convince us of that or not doesn't really matter, because at the end of the day, we are creating, and we are creating more consistently, better and better, more beautiful, amazing things, heaven on earth, right? So it was interesting that it felt for a couple weeks there, and it's very fascinating to me as we get farther and farther out from the June, July period, how it seemed, and I've talked about this in if you follow me, where we have these moments of kind of going into the underworld to deal with something, to tackle a lesson, to learn some sort of next level up in our progress, and then we come back up and things are pretty good for a while, and then we go under, then we come back up. June and July felt like one of those moments where we went into something really challenging. There was a sense of sort of the 3D train and the 5D train separating, or relationships with people who are choosing not to come along, sort of separating, and where we went through the intensity of sort of a feeling of separation. And now, yes, while this past moon felt like a little bit of a deep dive into the shadow again, we're consistently moving up, right? That there's less of a heaviness and a density than we experienced in that June, July timeframe, which is very, very inconsistent with what the astrology would say, which is fine, because I don't feel that that it has ultimate authority, because we are the creators, and there is always two paths that something, well, many paths that something can manifest or be utilized. Losing words here, so I apologize. Let me clarify what I'm trying to say there. Don't let anything tell you how it has to go. Just because we had, this difficult moon conjunct the head of Algol, right? It was supposed to be this gory thing. It didn't have to be. We, as creators, get to choose how we transmute and work with that energy. And so nothing is ever set in stone. We always have ultimate power and authority in our lives. And I've heard this term, people will say, oh, we're just the babies in the universe, and the angelics or the extraterrestrials look down on us as if we're immature and silly. And I find that so misaligned. I cannot resonate with that. There's almost a sense of deception in that we are tremendously powerful. We have just forgotten how to play the game called life, how to drive this beautiful sports car of a vessel that we have been gifted. And there's a reason why we live in a focus and attention economy, because our focus and attention creates worlds. Our intention and our frequency, our vibration, our thoughts are creating all of the time. And the powers that be, whoever that might be, we're not even going to go there, want to wield that power, want to try to direct the collective creative force through the little ones and the little dings on your phone, or the media, or the distractions out in the world, when at the end of the day, what that should tell us is, look at how powerful you are. We are not insignificant. We are not subject to some oppressor, that we so very quickly in every moment have that option to turn and shift and start creating something new. Okay. So really start to feel into the nuances of what you're experiencing. Feel into the body, and consciously look at, what are you creating, right? We are being asked to look at the way we are still holding ourselves back. Even a belief that I am, immature relative to the other beings that are available to us. there's a belief in that. There is control. I'm sorry, there is creation in that. You are creating your own limitation through that belief. And so the body is tremendously beautiful. The body is divine. The body is conscious. The body is on its own ascension journey. And it is designed to help us communicate, right? The body facilitates communication to us, communication with the divine, communication to each other, communication through what we are creating in our frequency, right? The body has beautiful, tremendously powerful gifts. The body is like your best friend and your partner. Another phrase that has been thrown around is that this meat suit, right? We are a soul, or we are a consciousness having a physical experience, and as if this body is dispensable or annoying or a problem. And it's so not true. The body loves you so much. Look at all the crap it has tolerated and put up with and helped you process and deal with. It loves you very, very much. But on top of that, more importantly, all these sensations in your body are forms of communication that help you understand how to utilize your creative capacity. Now, I wish I could have gotten into this a little faster. So I apologize for the lead up and the delay, but this is like the most important thing, at least in my life, that I'm loving learning. And I'm loving how even years after having this understanding cognitively, there is more embodiment of it in every moment. Feel into your body right now as I'm speaking. You're receiving, you're sensing, and your body is intaking this energy, and it's doing something inside of you. Feel, right? Like my solar plexus is excited right now, right? And if I were to describe that sensation, it's there's a color, it's almost a liquid, it's a building of an energy. And you notice how those descriptors are not logical. They don't mean something, right? The brain wants to make meaning of something. And yet if you feel into it and you learn to sit with the nuances of the sensations in your body, it will help you see what you are creating, where your resistance is, and those beliefs that keep you creating more limitation, more constriction, more stuckness, right? So really feel into the fibers of your being and start to notice the various tones or frequencies, the inner resonance in your body, because the body speaks. The mind, driven by the ego, distorts. The body is a discernment tool that will help you feel into the nuances of, where am I believing something inaccurate? Where am I believing something wrong? Where do I have a perspective that is cutting me off from God, source, creator energy, right? Cutting me off from the guidance of the desires of my heart that were put there by the divine to lead me towards my purpose, so that I can be of service and help to make the world a better place. The body and those sensations in the body help you feel into just the tiniest little, it reminds me of plucking a string on a harp or a guitar, that when you can feel into that, it will allow you to pluck the string that is going to shift you just a little bit. And it's really amazing when you start to do this every day, all day long. You start to notice every thought that's coming from a belief, and what is it creating, and how do I want to shift it? How do I want to feel into it? And the body becomes this feedback loop or system that says, hey, do you feel how shitty that feels? That's misaligned. How do I need to shift that perspective? How do I need to shift that belief? And then when it feels good, it feels so expansive, and it feels so amazing, and it feels so light. And that's the peace. That's the happiness. That's the joy that we're seeking, is that expansion. It's continuous growth. And that's, I suspect, why they utilize the lotus flower, because it's the opening, it's the continuous expansion. Right? Let go of the logic of the mind that needs to understand, right? If you find yourself having a thought or an experience that causes an icky feeling in your body, and you want to feel into it and really feel into the nuances of what that resistance or that limiting belief is. And yet your logical mind goes, yeah, but I don't think that. That's silly. I would never think that. Well, yeah, your intelligent brain says that, but there's something in you, whether it's logical or not. That's why we struggle to find these things, is because it's not always logical. It's very rarely linear. There's so many interconnections that stem from what's inside our physical being that we can't logic our way through. So really look at how the mind wants to control, overlook, silence, get in the way of what the body is trying to communicate, and just recognize that the mind's logicking its way through things is what's keeping us stuck. Right? So start to notice contraction in the body, disbelief, resistance, those phrases like, I can't, I never, it won't work, I've tried that before, I shouldn't. Just notice the cutting off of that, and notice that in your body. Feel into that. Feel into what is causing that. Any absolutes, right? I always, I never, right? The absolute in that is very clearly pointing to likely a trauma. And we just need to get into the body and feel into that, and sit with the body, sit with the sensations in the body, until the body brings to the logical mind whatever it is that is a belief that needs a shift in perspective. And as we know, a miracle is simply just a shift in perspective, choosing to see something differently, choosing to believe something differently. And it very much requires working with the sensations in the body. We cannot bootstrap or force a trauma that lives in the body to shift its belief or shift its perspective until that stress response is closed. So being with these sensations in the body, sitting with them, listening to them, feeling into the nuances of those tones, almost like you're plucking the fibers of your muscles. It is that intricate how we need to get into the body and be with that. Then we can finally move into these beliefs of there are no problems. There are no problems. There's literally no problems. Life is already amazing. Is a question of, can we see it? The miracle's here now. Are we seeing it? And the nuances of the sensations in the body are what's going to help us see what's in the way, so that we can start to peel back. I love the connection of the guidance is to feel into the fibers of our being, as if we're looking at every strand of every muscle and every particle in quartz and every, the tiniest little pieces within us. And then to connect that to, it's almost like pulling the strings of the veil of the curtain, right? The separation, the illusion, so that we can pull back the curtain and see the truth of what is already here right now. And I'll close with this. The phrase, or it's actually a Bible verse, it says, the one who has more will be given more, and he will have abundance. But from the one who has not, his will be taken away. And that sounds so unfair. It sounds it reminds me very much of the victim mentality that I lived in when I had so much unhealed trauma. Was the poor me. Poor me. It never works for me. Life is hard for me. Nobody ever takes care of me. Nobody's ever there for me. I'm on my own. I got to do it myself. I can't count on anybody. And it's this mentality, the victim mentality that comes with unhealed trauma, or the limited and restricted state of our being and of our mind and of our belief and of our creations, that says, I can't have that. I can't do that. I can't go there. It doesn't work for me. It's too hard. It takes too much energy. All of these beliefs that we literally have an opportunity to shift and change. There's nothing outside of us that declares that so, only what is in us. And what this verse means is, for those who believe, those who see that they have a lot, right? So for the one who has, more will be given, right? Do you see that you have already, or do you see that you have not? Right? Because everybody, even though it doesn't seem like it, right? In the 3D rules of the game, it might seem like some have more and some have less. But at the end of the day, we all have equal capacity to have or to not have. And it is those who see that they have, more is given. And those who see that they have not, what they have will be taken away. And really, it is understanding how to play the game called life from the 3D set of, from the 5D set of rules instead of the 3D set of rules. Because the 3D says this mouse is solid and it cannot be passed through, and it is what it is, and this is reality. And I, everything I see around me is just the evidence of truth, and it just is. And there's no changing that. That's the 3D limited perspective versus the 5D rule says this actually is vibrating. It has a frequency. And if I could find the frequency, I could move through it. Nothing is solid. And if anything, it's how I perceive it. It is my frequency and vibration that dictates how I engage with it, how I interact with it, how it responds back to me. It is the 3D perspective to say, it is what it is and I can't change it. It's the 5D perspective to say, everything I see is just an echo of the past, something that I've created. It is not evidence of what I'm capable of or what is available to me. And I will choose to see the restrictions, the resistance, and the blocks so that I can move through them and believe that more is available to me. My miracle is here now. And I am a powerful creator, and there isn't anything off limits. The sky isn't even the limit. Infinite potential is available to us because we were made in the likeness of the creator of the universe. Don't let anyone try to make you believe that you are somehow inferior, trapped, restricted. You are not an exception to the rule. It is all possible and available to you as well. And the body is the key to understanding how we get this crap out of the way so that we can expand into the potential and the purpose that we were made for. If you want to know more, I do offer free 30-minute sessions. There should be a link below. Otherwise, tons of free resources on my YouTube channel and all of the platforms. I'm on just about every single one. All right. I love you, my friends, and I will see you on the next one. Oh, and if you want to know more about figuring out what lives inside of you and you have not been able to kind of put your finger on what's in your subconscious, what's creating your reality, make sure you check out the video I posted this weekend. And that'll give you some more insight on how to find it so you can shift and change it. All right. Love you, my friends. Namaste.